Thesubstream.com presents Editing Basics 2, Nonlinear Editing, a Primer. The Film Lab.
Hey everybody, I'm Rajo from thesubstream.com, and here I've written a bunch of words on our whiteboard. What I'd like you to do is to arrange some or all of them to form two sentences. The first one should be something funny, and the second one should be something serious or dramatic. There's no right or wrong, and you can use words more than once if you like. The only thing you have to remember is you have to follow the basic rules of grammar to the best of your ability. But how are you going to approach this assignment? Are you going to pick one to start with and just write your sentence out logically, word by word? Or are you going to get scrap paper and maybe write a bunch of sentence fragments out until you've got some ideas that start making sense? And how many of you are going to come up with the exact same sentence? I mean, there's only 17 words, so it's pretty likely, right? Wait a minute. This assignment reminds me a lot of film and video editing. In editing, you'll often find that there's not really such a thing as right or wrong, but more it's a case of appropriate or inappropriate. Sure, you're following along with the script, but it's up to you whether or not the scene opens with a wide shot or close-up. And if you and I were cutting the same footage, chances are the results won't be the same. That's because you and I aren't clones that share the same hive mind, but rather we're individuals with different thoughts and different gut feelings. And as editors, we have different ideas when it comes to making movies. You may not have heard of Thelma Schoonmaker, but she was the editor on every last one of Martin Scorsese's films since Raging Bull. Something about the way she cuts has helped to give Scorsese his voice as an auteur over the last 30 years, regardless of the film or its subject matter. It's the same with Michael Kahn, who was the editor on every Steven Spielberg film from Close Encounters to Munich. So obviously, choice in editor is important to these guys, and why shouldn't it be? It's the editor that has the huge job of piecing together all that footage and coming up with something as stylish and accomplished as Goodfellas or Schindler's List. But how an editor works is just as important to consider. Way back in ancient times, film editing was a completely manual endeavor, from start to finish. People would shoot a bunch of random footage in no particular order, then they'd get their negatives processed, then they'd get a work print made from the negative, and then they would literally take a razor blade and clear adhesive tape and splice their footage together in the way they wanted it to appear. And since often they were working with thousands and thousands of feet of cumbersome film, they were forced to cut in a way that didn't easily afford them the luxury of experimentation. But it also forced editors to approach the whole cutting process with special consideration, and to apply a discipline that made for a more efficient workflow. This often produced film work that was extremely well thought out and rock solid in its realization. The shower scene in Psycho, one of the most famous edited sequences of all time, is a great example of this. This 3-minute scene was rigidly storyboarded, and it took them a week to shoot. But watching it even today, not a single shot is out of place. Nothing is held for too long or for not long enough. It's perfect. And Hitchcock probably played and replayed it in his head a million times before he even got the footage back from the lab. It was a very specific way of working and thinking about making movies that, thanks to nonlinear editing technology, is no longer mandatory. Now editing basically just means jamming all your footage into a computer, trying out new sequences, deleting them if they don't work, copying and pasting with a simple keystroke, and basically enjoying the freedom to make a zillion mistakes without having it cost you extra time and money. You know, as someone who was taught film editing on a Steenbeck machine that was older than I was, I can't begin to express how liberating it is to work in a program like Final Cut Pro, where you can experiment and make new sequences and change your mind a million times, all on the fly. This allows guys like Darren Aronofsky to really push the boundaries of film editing to the limit. If you've seen Requiem for a Dream, you'll know what I'm talking about. His editor, Jay Rabinowitz, made over 2,000 cuts in that movie, whereas the average film features maybe a third of that. Without nonlinear editing, who's to say what kind of movies Darren Aronofsky would even make? It's exactly this technology that allows his particular brand of artistic expression to even exist. So how are you going to approach my little assignment? Are you going to put the words together linearly based on a singular idea you've already got rolling around in your head? Or are you going to get your own whiteboard out and just go to town until you come up with something that works? Whatever your approach, it's right, as long as it works, and it is in fact your approach. So get to it. Use the comment section below to write out your two sentences. We'll pick the 2 best, and the winners will get an autographed photo of me or Mel Gibson. So thanks for watching, and get to work.